So after creating my last video, it led me to having thoughts upon thoughts, speaking of women, men, and children. I just began to think about the dynamics of us as a whole and generational curses and life and death and things of that nature. And a lot of times I notice that when a woman becomes becomes pregnant, is when, people make sure you don't drink, make sure you don't smoke. That's when the woman wants to like really take care of her body the most. And that tends to be where her significant other tends to her body and emotional needs the most. But I want to make it clear that some things take preventative steps and preventative measures. In my personal opinion, I think those things should be done way before the woman even thinks about getting pregnant. Matter of fact, I think it should be done before she even gets into a relationship. The curriculum of dealing with the opposite sex has not been placed in school, and I don't know why, because it's one of the things that we go through dealing with all our lives. And let's face it, there's subjects in school that we've learned and we're never ever going to use them, but we deal with each other every day on one way or another on a regular basis. And going back to people focus on the woman's health, I think it's important to, and most importantly, focus on a man's health prior to a woman having a child and becoming, pregnant in the first place, because he carries the sperm. If by chance he gives her a defective sperm because he was smoking or he was drinking or he even took a medication, that he didn't know was going to be detrimental to his sperm, the only thing she's going to be doing is fertilizing a I want to use a sensitive term for it, unhealthy fetus. That's still not, sensitive, but it's real and it's honest. Um, and therefore, the child can have birth defects. But not only that, people focus on what you should eat, what you should drink, and things of that nature, like resting and things of that nature. But people don't focus on the fact that you need to be aware of the things that you watch. You need to be aware of the things that you do. You need to be aware of the people who are around you. The baby in your womb could be a empath and you don't even know it. But you sitting around just anybody. Toxic people talking about toxic things. You could be disturbing the living crap out of the baby in your stomach just according to the company that you keep. Now let's go back to the things that we do, because just like drinking and smoking can affect the child, so can the things we do. That's literally your child. I mean, not say that, she or he is literally your flesh and your blood. Now, I might go a little bit deeper. For some it might not be so deep. Who knows? But I want to go on to saying, which this was thoughts upon thoughts, which led me into thinking about generational curses and how they come about. You gotta remember, we have to remember, when we have children, the child is literally made of our flesh and blood. I am literally all fingers, all toes, all of this flesh, literally made up of the flesh of my mother and my father. My child is literally made up of my flesh and the flesh of her father, and likewise for everybody in this world. So it is important that I watch the things that I do, because she is still made out of my flesh and can get my karma. Sounds weird, doesn't it? And I ain't talking about just the drinking and the smoking, my actions in general. If I steal something from somebody, if I intentionally harm somebody, any vile activity that I does, she is my flesh and my blood. It can transfer on to her. You know, I watched something a while back and they were testing DNA. They tested a DNA on a doorknob from a man that was miles and miles away. If I'm not mistaken, he was like in another country. And when they were doing testing on him, they were doing testing on the DNA that he left on the doorknob. Every mood he felt popped up in that DNA that he left on the doorknob. Not only that, y'all know I'm going to get biblical, that's just me. When we think about death, when I used to think about death when I was young and I used to read the Bible, I'm like, well, we all gonna die. So what's the point of really threatening people with death in the Bible? Then as I got older and I'm reading, I'm noticing that they use the word, Most High use the word, eternal death. Now there's a difference between death and eternal death. We know that there are different components that we are made of. Well, at least in my beliefs. This is my beliefs and my opinion. Nobody has to believe it. On all my videos, this is my beliefs and my opinions. We're made up of soul, spirit, body. I believe that the soul is the God force. It's what helps us to feel, what helps us to sense things. It's the part of us that helps us to be humane. Then we have our spirits, which is the battery for this physical vessel. So I came to the terms upon reading the Bible when the Most High speaks of eternal death. I started noticing how he was wiping out whole entire generations when he spoke of eternal death. And that's when I realized just a physical death does not mean necessarily that you are dead. The difference between, and this is just my opinion again, death and eternal death is when God says, I'm not giving you a soul to come back here no more. That's what eternal death is. Eternal death is when you are no longer coming back here because you were so vile and so foul. And not only that, I'm going to go back to saying, when he spoke of eternal death, he wiped out generations. So when he speaks about eternal death and killing you completely, he's talking about you and everything made of you. That child you had, those grandchildren you had, the pregnant woman with the baby in the womb, all of that, as harsh as it seems, when he sounds. When he speak about eternal death, when you read it, this is what it's about, wiping out whole entire nations. The first time it took place was with who? Who was that? Lot? Not Lot. I always say Lot. But you know, Noah. He wiped out everybody. Everybody. Made it rain for 40 days and 40 nights. Eternal death. Because when you're not to be here, neither is nothing about you to be here. Sodom and Gomorrah. Wiping people out by the generations. So that's the difference between death and eternal death. And that's what I'm taking that back to where I was going. How we have to be careful when we are pregnant. And like I said, before we even get pregnant, the things we do. Because we can cause generational curses and things to come back to our children, our DNA. If they can take the DNA off of a doorknob and determine how this man feels with this DNA off the doorknob while they somewhere testing him in a lab, imagine what could be going on with your child, even after you have them, when something happens with you. Just imagine that. Imagine what could happen to your child because you did something that you should not have done to somebody. And it might skip past you, but it won't skip past your flesh. That's why they say sometimes when people do things, they skip right back past them and go to somebody that they love. Now, this might not make sense to some people, and maybe it will. But we got to be careful what we think and who we are around. And gentlemen, it got to start with you. You got to take care of your mind, your spirit, and your body before you decide that you want to have a child. You got to put yourself in a mature king state of mind, because your child life depends on it, literally. Take pride in knowing that you carry zillions of sperm cells with you every single day. Now, people don't think nothing of sperm cells, you know what I'm saying, because they didn't develop into fetuses. But life has different stages. Some stages are in the nutsack, and then they die. Some stages, fetus makes it to the womb for a month and they will pass away. Some stages we make it here 40 years, 50 years. But there are different stages of life. Don't let nobody tell you that when the baby didn't have a life and the life didn't matter until the baby got there. Because the life matters even before the baby gets in your nutsacks. The life matters. That spirit matters. You know? Somebody all the way on the other side like, you know what? I'm going to send you out there into heaven. Yes, this is heaven. Y'all can watch my video on that. I'm sending you out there to heaven. I like you. I want you to experience a different part of life. I'm sending you through that gentleman right there. Don't forget how special you are. Don't take your semen lightly. But yeah, those things was crossing my mind. This is just thoughts upon thoughts, just because I made that video, and it just led to me thinking a million gazillion things. And I just wanted to put it out there, like, you know, let us not allow our behaviors and actions to let the sins fall on the children. And I know there's a part in the Bible that speaks of the sins not falling on the children, but people got to understand when they read just little passages and stuff like that, that could be for a particular person. That could be for a particular time zone. That could be for a particular group of people. It doesn't necessarily mean it's for everybody, because I spoke to somebody before and they were saying, oh no, the sins of the parents and that. No, it's not. If I sit here and I'm pregnant and I'm smoking crack, what you think will happen to my baby? You know? If I don't take the time out to educate myself while I'm pregnant and I have a child, what am I going to teach my child? What do you think is going to happen to my child? Your sins do fall on your children, you know? So let's just take better care of ourselves. And always remember, stay prayed up. Even for the people that you don't like, even for the bad people. Because the truth be told, they need more prayer than anybody. And the other truth be told is the better off we all are, the better off the world is. So yeah, have a good night. I'll take my butt to sleep.